Test 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. Well, hello everyone, welcome. I'm Sarper Akdemir, and my talk will be about chasing and interoperability in Impress. More specifically, it will be about files produced by PowerPoint and their interoperability with Impress. So who am I? Quick description. And I'm Sarper Akdemir. I go by QX in the IRC most of the time. And I was a Google Summer of Code student in 2020. And I've done physics-based animation effects for Impress. Right now I'm still studying at Istanbul Technical University. I'm an electronics and communication engineering student there, and we have a club there. I served as chair of it for 2 terms. Right now, I'm also an intern of collaborative productivity. So let's begin. What are the rough steps for fixing an interoperability bug? Firstly, I think the most important part is understanding the problem and the bug, because this can be really complicated. Then it looks on the surface most of the time. And then, of course, we come up with a proposed fix that we'd like to implement, how it would behave if it was working right. And we try to do that most of the time. These 2 steps are kind of interlinked, and we go between them. A new proposed fix, try to implement that, and if that doesn't work, of course, a new one. And lastly, when we are done, to ensure that this work keeps working, we implement tests for it, and that's quite important too. So let's start an import bug from a PPX file. We need to understand the bug first. So we are going to go through the bug report, and so most of the time titles of the bug reports are quite misleading. And because they just in a short sentence try to describe what went wrong, they most of the time it is not possible to get it right most of the time. So after that there is a description and comments. I think the most important part, usually if it's a populated bug, is the comments. There are lots. If you are lucky, you can find lots of know-how there of other QA engineers going through the document and giving tips and stuff. So look out for that. Here I picked an example bug that's about image color appearing wrong, and that is the title. But obviously this doesn't really describe the technical problem with the bug. It's just there's an image and it opens wrong. And there are lots of attachments. I like to talk about them right now because I really love them. When someone actually sends a bug report and also includes comparison images with it, it's really easy to understand the situation better before. Of course, there are also the version ones because LibreOffice gets constantly updated. And if this is an archaic bug, we can just look at how it was when it was initially reported for 5.2 and how it is now, and we can actually compare those. So if you do that, I will love it. So investigating bug documents, the most important resource are the bug documents that are in the attachment. And for import, we need to compare how it was actually appearing in PowerPoint in the current situation and how it is in Impress. We need to try to reproduce the problematic part in PowerPoint. How we do that can differ. If we can find how it was actually done through the PowerPoint UI, it is better because we can create lots of variations of it. Because most of the time when we are working with Office software, doing one thing can be done a lot of different ways. If you want to set something transparent, for instance, you can set the text transparent, set the whole box transparent, maybe it's a group shape, you can make the group shape transparent. So there are lots of ways of achieving the same thing. If we understand how the user actually initially approached it is better. And finally, usually this is, I think, most important part. If we can't do that, exploring the produce file, unzipping it and browsing the content, we will have to do that anyway. And for instance, for the bug case that I just showed here, the attached images show that this is how it appeared on PowerPoint, and this is how it appeared on Impress. And when we look through zip and the pictures themselves, they actually look how it looks on. They actually look how it looks on Impress. So looking at this, before starting anything, I'd like to isolate the problematic part. Because for instance, this graphic is actually same with PowerPoint on Impress. So I just, for instance, decided to focus on this graphic. And to do that, you just create a new blank PowerPoint document, just copy it and paste it over so that you have a clean document with the problematic piece. And my first assumption, looking at these photos alone, was PowerPoint was applying some kind of color effect to it. And most likely, Impress didn't actually have a similar thing. But later, okay, not yet. I'm ahead of myself. So then after isolating the piece, I saved the document, looked through its contents by unzipping it or some other way, and we go to the slide contents, and we can find that there is this BI level tag, which means I believe binary level, and it specifies a black and white effect to the image. Also, there is an accompanying threshold value. And after finding this, my hunch was still that Power Impress doesn't have this black and white effect implemented, so we just can't import it probably, or something like that, because I didn't know about stuff. Okay. Then I looked through the UI of PowerPoint and look where I applied this black and white effect, and I found it in picture format color and it was under recolor. So these three elements are actually black and white color effects, and it goes through 25%, 50%, and 75%. So there are only three options for it. So I went ahead and copied the same picture over three times and applied 25% for one, 50% for one, and 75% for the last one. And this is how it looks when I reopen it. When I open it in PowerPoint, and later I saved this and opened this in Impress, and all of them were black. So I was like, okay, my hunch was really correct, and I was going the right way. So there is no black and white effect implemented. Maybe import of it is not implemented. But I thought I was in the right way. So after that, I wanted to check if these tokens or XMLs were even considered during import. So to do that, I just grabbed through OX source drawing ML for BI level tag, and I found it actually. I didn't expect this to be there because nothing was happening. So I went through and chased what happened to the color effect later, found it's here, and it was setting something called color mode, and color mode mono was defined. So most likely, actually, Impress had some way of applying the monochrome or binary level or black and white effect. There are lots of names for it. It appears. And realizing this, okay, where am I? Sorry. And so I thought, okay, actually there is import of binary level, but we don't see any import of threshold values here. So maybe if I implement it, that should be okay. So I started to come up with a proposed fix, and so bug reason, when coming up with the proposed fix, bug reasons might be no implement import, non-existent feature, no straight forward way of mapping the feature, because sometimes two features might mean another single feature in other software. So for this case, let me just go a little faster, because not much time. There's not much time. For the case with TDF 89928, the one with the color binary level effect, I tried to implement the missing parts of the feature, and so what I realized was I went to Impress, and there was no way of defining any threshold values when we apply a color mode there. So the feature mapping 1-to-1 was not going to work. Now we have two options here. We can go the generalized way, which should be the best way to do it, and implement the missing parts of the feature, then import, then export, then for ODP and other formats. But this is relatively hard to do, and if this feature isn't that much important, it doesn't make sense to go through this. So I actually went with the easy to implement way here, because what I realized going through some code around there was this was already being done for duotone transforms and some change color transform effects. These effects were actually getting baked.
Hello. Yeah. So should we start? Okay. My name is Cisco Foley. I work for the Document Foundation, and I didn't know how to title this talk, so just say that's coverage in LibreOffice. I'm gonna explain. So A few years ago, I decided, well, like I found that we had sometimes fixes in LibreOffice that didn't have a unit test along with the fix. And I found after being involved in QA for some years that that we had regressions that we fixed, and we even have a regression fix and then the same regression happening again. So the pandemic came and I had a lot of time and I I decided okay, I think it's time to learn how to because I already knew how to write some tests. But for instance, CPP unit test, I didn't know much about that. So I decided, okay, it's time to learn it and try to improve the test coverage of LibreOffice. So the problem I found is that well, we have after the project was forked, then we had a long list of commits, and it was for me difficult to find which fixes had a fix. Which fixes had a unit test, and which fixes didn't have any coverage or any way to be tested automatically. So then I started to think about that, and I thought, okay, it's hard to, for instance, we have some commits in LibreOffice where the author of the commit or the patch just gives a short explanation of the fix, but if there is no bug ID, normally when you commit a patch, then you normally, if there is a Bugzilla ticket related to that, you normally mention it in the commit message. You say TDF and then the bug ID of the ticket in Bugzilla. So I found that for a third person like me trying to add unit test, it was easier to find those issues in Bugzilla, because normally you have the documents to reproduce the issue, you have the steps to reproduce the issue. So then I started to think about that, and I came with the idea of creating a script to list all these fixes that didn't have unit test assigned to them. So for that, I just used the log of Git. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start a random date, but after the fork of LibreOffice, I decided, okay, I'm going to take the log since the beginning of 2012, and then I'm going to do it in reverse order. Why in reverse? Because sometimes we have commits fixing an issue, and after that, sometimes we have the unit test or the test covering the fix and the fix itself in the same commit, but sometimes it's not the case, and we have maybe one after the other. We have the fix, and then we have the unit test, or we may have the fix, and after 2 weeks or a month or some time, we have the unit test. So the way for me to test it was to know if there was a unit test or not, was to do it in reverse order, and then we look for the pattern. Well, the script looks for the pattern. So normally nowadays we use the pattern, the TDF pattern, but in the past we also have this FDO or bug or LO, and then for each commit, we check the modified files in that commit. So LibreOffice structure in folders, it's in a way that every module we have, for instance, SW for writer or SC for calc. Inside these folders, we have a subfolder called QA. That's common pattern in all the folders, where all these unit tests or all the tests are in there. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna look for in every commit for the modified files, and then if there is QA in one of the paths of one of the modified files, then I'll assume that there is a unit test for that fix, and if not, then we can we can assume that there is not a unit test for this fix. And after that, we go to Bugzilla and we check with the REST API some parameters like, okay, let's check if the bug is closed or fixed, because sometimes there is already a fix in the log in Git, but maybe the developer will add the unit test after that. And in this particular case, because testing performance issues is kind of difficult, I decided to avoid these issues that we have in Bugzilla, which have the keyword perf, which means performance. And then once we have the list of fixes that doesn't have a unit test with them, then we just the output, we use the media markup for that, and then we just put it in, or in my case, I just put it in this website, which I'm going to show you. And the reason I say this is good for history, it's, let me show you. So I'm opening many times. So basically, but now I don't see it here. What? Yeah, so basically this is the wiki page that the script creates. So basically it says this report is created by this script, which is in the LibreOffice core, then bin / check missing unit test, and then when this report was created, the number of commits that you read it there. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so the number of commits that were analyzed since 2012, then the branch master, and the last commit that was analyzed. So basically, what I do is to group the different missing unit tests by parts of the code, but now we have a list of missing unit test. So, and then you have the date where the commit was done, the priority of the bug, and then you have the description of the bug, and also you can have a link to this ticket. So then if you want to try to add a unit test for this, you just come here to Bugzilla, you read the steps, you have the files there. So yeah. Basically, the idea was to have a place where we can list all the missing tests that we don't have, and try to, like shorten the list, because For instance, if we go to like right there, we have, for instance, for undo, we have 36, but then like we have many. It goes really long. Yeah. So. Yeah. So just to be clear, it's not about all the code in LibreOffice. I'm just trying to pick some parts like SW and then sorting them by the path of the files that were modified in the fix to group them. But there are still missing parts here which are not, because sometimes it's really hard to have a test for. I don't know. And I'm also excluding some parts on purpose because there are some fixes like, okay, I want to change the label of a dialog, then I don't think that makes sense to test. It's just a label and it can be changed anyway, anytime. So, back to the presentation. You see it now? Yeah. So, then now that we have this list, if you want to write a test for specific fix, then some ideas, then you can check. Because you have the fix of the issue, and then you have the fix of the issue, so you know which files were modified to fix that issue. Then you can check the log for each of these files and see if other fixes containing a unit test are already in the log, so you can already know, okay, I know this fix in the same file containing this unit test, then probably the unit test can be similar, so you already know you have a starting point. Then one question to ask yourself is, okay, do I need to write a UI test or CPP unit test? Well, we have other ways to test also in LibreOffice, but right now these are the main ones, and for a starter, then it's UI test is basically when you are doing something with the UI, then you should write a UI test. The problem is that when it's running Jenkins, it's only executed on Linux, and then we don't have it executed on Mac or Windows, and they are slower than CPP unit test. But then in other cases, other than UI, then you should normally use CPP unit test, and we already have a bunch of tests as examples, so then it's kind of it's not that difficult to write your first test. Yeah.
Can you explain in a sentence or two how tests which consider the rendering output, like what appears on the user's application screen, can be written when it's not, numeric output in a file or something that can easily compare code?
Yeah. So basically, when you let's say open a dialog in LibreOffice, you are using a Uno command. So with UI test framework, you can just call this Uno command, and then it will open the dialog, and then you can just get the top windows as a variable, and then you can examine it like, okay, I have this widget, like I have a text box, so then you can get that text box and see the properties of it. So that's the way. Let's say you expect to have a text box, say in table 1, so then you just get the properties of this specific widget, and you assert that it's the text in the widget is table 1. Does it? Okay, and I can explain it. And then I'll continue. In many cases, yeah. So ideally, when a test needs to be written, then in a way to test that it's properly implemented, the fix should be reverted. So if you write a test, then it passes, and then you revert the fix, it should not pass. The problem is that we are checking fixes since 2012 and reverting a patch from like 6 years ago. Sometimes it's tricky and difficult, but that's the ideal solution. Yeah.
Basically, I don't know nothing about test strategies like you explain now, but wouldn't it be wise to start backwards in creating those unit tests, or otherwise, is it really a good idea to create something to test a bug fix which is, let's say, 8 years old and has no regression since then? So, or can we just check it and okay, it works, and we don't need to create a test for that?
Yeah, you're right, and that's a good question. And I forgot to mention before in the website here when we have the list of issues. Let's say I update it once every month. Then I can come here to the history, where the bird historial, see history, and then if I see the differences between changes, I can see that here in blue, these were fixes added in the last month without a unit test. So now, okay, because for me it's easier to revert this fix than 8 years old fix. So that's kind of the way to try to catch up. Yeah, exactly. So, but anyway, I like it. Like I decided, okay, some fixes from the past are so easy to revert. Some of them like minor issues, fixes. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna like show all the log. But yeah, we could change. Like let's say we could analyze only the last 3 years or 4 years or 1 year. Would make sense. The list would be shorter, but yeah, that's a matter of taste. But yeah, you're right. And so in some cases the issues are specific to specific document. So in that case, when we create a test for that, the ideal test would have a minimized document, because we don't want to. Well, if we start actually when you create a patch, there is a maximum size of per file of half a megabyte. But yeah, the smaller the document, the better, and then just if it contains the minimum information inside the document, it's better. And then once we create the commit, then don't forget to add the TDF and then the ID of the issue. So then the next time the list is updated, it will be gone from the list. And yeah, finally I have some data here. This is about SW source. So inside SW source there are few folders. There is one for UI, which I excluded here because, as I explained, in many cases those are cosmetic changes, and well, I ignored them. So since 2012, 2,300, more than 2,300 bugs were fixed, and we have a coverage of 61%, and the idea will be to increase it, and ideally both charts should go parallel. Together. Exactly. So here the blue one was going like steeper, and now kind of the orange one in the last year going a bit steeper. Then for SC we have a 57% of coverage. Then SD, it's around 50%. And then we have other modules where the coverage it's really good, 85%. And I think the philosophy here was always to have a unit test, and maybe it's because it's easier. I don't know, but it's really good here in module or in folder. Same for writer filter. We have 92% coverage. And then this one's getting better since 2018, but still 41%. And those were just some examples. I didn't want to use all the folders in LibreOffice because we could be here for years. But those were just some examples I want to share. So thank you very much. And do you have any question?
I don't have a question. I wanted just to give a personal thank you as a developer because having the unit tests that catch up helps my work and helps me to prevent regressions and answering a bit of the previous question. Of course, please use your time wisely. But if you have time to create a unit test for something from 2012, please do it.
Question? I have one. I have a small one. You mentioned that you should add the kind of hashtag of the bug when you create a new test. This means that your
experience, but also ongoing efforts or decisions that have been made. Solicitation of requests. Do you need X? Do you want X? If the annual report that we do have. I think that's not enough. Okay, and something that's more tricky and challenging, because there are a lot of language communities, so I'm not sure this is a recommendation to adopt, is trying to build personal rapport with some members, at least, of the language community. And if we could, we at least need to strive to make members or active users in the language community feel that their contributions are appreciated and their effort is appreciated and their grievances, the complaints that they make are certainly heard and addressed to the extent that it's relevant to be addressed. And it's not clear that this always happens. I mean, obviously, we can't fix, and you can't fix all the bugs and everything that people want to be fixed. But the question of acknowledgement on the emotional level is something that should be thought about. And that they're not alone. If it's a really small group, the sense of we're ignored, we're not important, nobody cares about our existence or what we do because we're not vocal enough or don't participate enough can create this sort of vicious cycle of inactivity. So showing interest even on the personal level in some of what an individual contributor might be doing. And again, this is the most demanding in terms of effort, but it would help. And for people who do contribute more, trying to watch out for people not to burn out. Because in a struggling community, sometimes, sorry for ignoring you. Sometimes a smaller number of people or even a single person ends up with everything on their shoulders, and then if he gets prompted for more interaction, more requests, then there's that danger that instead of doing more, they'll end up just quitting and giving up. So that's something to watch out for, even within language communities. This isn't just something that I want people in the project or the foundation to watch out for. Third subject. Yes, I realize that. Yes. I'll, for sure. Knowledge and skill sharing. I'll just give the example and you can do the generalization. So the user group in German, rather the German language user group, in the past has operated a booth in a computer trade show in Sebi. And theoretically, they could teach other language communities how to do that. Or they could teach in the sense of having like a training session. Or they could write a description or a guide on how to do that. And suppose they wrote such a guide, then the foundation would then should have the responsibility of making sure this is disseminated to other relevant language communities. And they could propose like a list of items, for example. We need like metal bars, you need pages, you need scotch tape, you need X, you need Y. Then the foundation could create like a kit of these items, and regardless of whether it buys them for a language community or just suggests where they could be procured, or even just this list of items for a language community to have if it wants to do the same thing. So generalizing this is relevant to other kinds of activities and other kinds of documents. And we should also think about what a language community can do for other communities if it's more established, and what the foundation or people in the project, developers or other capacities could do to facilitate the interaction. So that's basically it. There's also budget and staffing, which we might need to think about to carry out some of these suggestions. And yesterday we had the task prioritization that we did, and a lot of people suggested more developers, and nobody said, including myself, more language community support staff. So another thing to think about. Thank you very much. I know it was quick. But have a look at the slides if you heard some things that you thought are interesting, and I'm very open to discussion after this set of sessions. And thanks for listening.
Okay, I think we can start. Hi everyone. Uh, no, because I have like 27 slides and 30 minutes, so. Hi everyone to my talk. I'm Gabor Kelemen, currently working as a QA engineer for Allotropia, and I would like to give a very high level overview of interoperability of LibreOffice, especially in Microsoft formats. A little bit of history about me. During the last several years, I have been hunting these sort of issues and reporting them as part of my work. And I can say that compared to like 6 years ago, when I started with this on the industrial level, I can say there is a lot of progress, but we are still not there. And most importantly, this talk is not for those who are currently present here, so sorry for wasting your time, but for those who can afford the luxury of improving LibreOffice in terms of actual code contribution or giving out contracts to the ecosystem companies. This is just several ideas. What can you do to improve LibreOffice and make sure your documents look the same after opening it in LibreOffice and after saving it in LibreOffice. So, a little bit of agenda. I will show you some numbers, which is statistics, so it's lies, don't believe it. I will define what do I mean good, bad and ugly as feature coverage in LibreOffice, and a little bit of very detailed look at docx, XLSX and PPTX, and highlighting the ugly bits everywhere because they are not concentrated to the ugly parts, but in everywhere. So, a lot of numbers. This is the number of meta bugs in the first line for docx, XLSX, blah blah blah. And the actual number of open bugs under those categories, which of course include the open bugs, the meta bugs, and all these subcategories which I will talk about later. What can you see of this? The color coding of the numbers shows the same applications. So text is red and blah blah blah. What can we see? Best supported format is PPT because there is a very small number of meta bugs and actually very small number of open bugs for that format. Very good, right?
No, wrong.
Okay, so this is actually a lie. This just shows that some formats are more popular among users than others. It does not mean those are supported well, that show low numbers. They are not very popular. We are, as community, not doing enough to find problems in those formats. So perhaps a little bit more effort should be put in those formats, because most features you can have in, let's say, Word. You can save those in RTF, doc, docx. Docx is very much covered in terms of bugs, but if you save the same document for which we have a report in docx to doc or RTF formats, it will very likely fall apart in those formats. So we need to find a lot more bugs. Next slide. What is good, bad, and ugly? Let's say we have a meta bug which covers an area of feature in LibreOffice. Let's say paragraph in docx. I consider the current state of that feature good if the ever reported filed bugs are mostly solved, so above 85%. It's bad if it's between 60 and 85, and it's ugly if it's below 60. Like, you may say I'm very strict here and very pessimistic, and actual users will never hit those bugs. Maybe, but come on. If you have ever had a decent university exam, performance below 60% would give you a very, very low grade for that, right? So let's be strict with ourselves as well. So now the deep dive into those categories and formats, but only the OXML ones. So for docx I see 6 categories. These may be a little bit difficult to understand, but I just copy-pasted the metabug titles, so they are kind of wacky sometimes. One thing to highlight here is comment issues category. It works pretty well, but this comment replies feature, which Word has since, I don't know, at least 2010, is not very interoperable. Like it's just not. So if you have replied to a comment, it will fall apart in Writer. And we are already at the bad ones, and we have several categories of several slides filled with these. Most of these are not necessarily just docx specific, but just to highlight. For example, there is OXML strict support for in the shapes category. It just shows that for this very new OXML strict standard, we don't have very much bug reports because it should not just affect the shapes that for which we have existing reports. So there is something very, very, very deeply buried here. And of course, we don't have multicolor gradients, and we don't have proper table styles, and we don't have table white automatic table white support for tables. So there are many bugs apart from these, but these are the most important ones, I think, for these categories. And of course, we are having this rotated text boxes issue, which is kind of hurtful, and even the aggressive competition is attacking LibreOffice with that feature. So it would be very decent to fix it for the foreseeable future. We have more bad categories. And the generic OXML bug tracker, for which the initial slides, the 700 figure was shown, is also in this category. So it should really see a lot more love. Some more more highlighted features is the negative page margins feature, which is very strange, even in Word. But page margin top and bottom works completely different if you put in the field a positive number or a negative number, and we don't support the negative number case. And it causes a lot of real world documents to fall apart, especially those required by the court system of California state. For example, I had seen some lovely examples from that jurisdiction, and they won't change their habits just for us. Sorry, no time for questions. And of course there is the lovely feature request, paragraph level justification, which is introduced in Word 2013, and we had a feature request for this very same feature since 2011, and we still don't have it while the competition has. It would be really useful to have that as well. Okay, more bad things in docx, but this is the bulk of it, I promise. So in Word you can put endnotes directly at the end of the document, and not only on the end of the whole document at a new page. There are several use cases for this, especially in university settings when people are writing long dissertations with thousands of references, and they are put in the endnote and it falls apart. So it would be also nice to have this. And last batch in docx bad things, track changes. Track changes is a lovely feature of Word, and it's a passive feature of Word, meaning Word supports it and users are just pushing a button to enable it, and the Word tracks any changes it sees. And the user has no much control about what is tracked. Unfortunately, our Word has a lot less support for tracking changes in documents, and it is possible to add support for each and every one of those. And Laszlo Németh is also doing it currently as part of his job, but a lot more work is needed in this area to be interoperable feature-wise as well with Word. And of course the deletions on the annotations bar, so that you can see the final document with changes in the document body and with additions, is also a much needed feature. And of course we have this support restrict editing of documents. Word has several ways to limit what can be changed in the document, and Word is very good at this, and Writer supports about half of those options. Another reason for documents falling apart is the use of this continuous section break feature in Word. It's a Word feature since forever, and we have been unable to implement it so far. And the last of these list is VML support for graphics. So this was the XML format used by Microsoft 2007, and it was replaced by DML in 2010 and newer versions. So it might sound like not very important to have this. In general, VML support is unreliable, especially with group shapes. And of course, when we save or open group shapes, the rotated text box issue also hits us. Another question is, why do I mention VML? Like, who the hell else uses it other than Microsoft Office 2007? I will return to that later. So, last slide is the ugly categories. Again, VML and the fact that we don't have a canvas shape in docx. So that is another reason for very detailed and carefully crafted graphics to fall apart in Writer when they were put on this canvas shape, whatever that is. You can basically resize shapes together in Word. And of course, the formula-related issues is basically the mathematical equations in this context. And last but not least is the biggest elephant in the room is the floating table. Someone should really implement that for Writer, not because it makes a lot of sense, but it is used by a lot of people, perhaps even inadvertently. But this does not make it unnecessary to support. And for the last slide of docx, a little bit of chart highlighting what is really a bad situation in all those categories. This is the number of open bugs in the meta bugs. So we can see that the floating table alone feature is about at 30 open bugs. You may not see 30 as a very large number, like 1 billion is a large number, but in terms of bugs, 30 is a large number. And the table issues also contains this, but even if you subtract the 30 from this very long bar, you are still around 60. It's still terrible. There is no silver bullet here. We just need to fix every single reported issues. It does not mean everything is just plainly a interoperability issue, meaning that we don't need to develop new features and new attributes for existing objects. There are lots of issues that can be solved only by developing new attributes or new features, including UI, including ODF support, including extending the ODF standard. Those are also here among this huge lot. So if you want to pull out some very poisonous sticks from the interoperability of Writer, please take a look at these categories. And with that, we can go to the bad ones in generic OXML. generic OXML, I mean features that are the same in all applications like Writer, Calc, and Impress. You can have like surface charts, pie charts, pie bar charts, and the new MSO 2016 chart types, which are 6 of them, in all of those applications, except we don't support those features. And I'm already at the bad ones. There are no good ones in this category. So we have little time left. I will just fast forward. More bad categories for OXML, including, of course, VML shape and EMF. VMF support, which is an image file format, and VBA macro issues. I'm actually surprised that VBA is not in the ugly category, but it should really be there. And of course, there are ugly ones in generic OXML, like word art and complex charts, which are charts with more than one representation for the data. So chart component supports column and line combination, but Microsoft Office supports a lot more combinations for the data visualization, and in some use cases those are as well used. And of course there is Asian phonetic guide. I have no idea what is that, but looks very bad in terms of open box. Another chart of these categories, what we can see is that shape support, drawing ML and VML is easily topping the list, like single biggest issue, but there is no silver bullet against that, unfortunately. It's just really a lot of small issues related to the support of that in the 3 applications all over the place. And finally we have some good ones at XLSX, finally at that. So perhaps the most important among these is the autofilter related bugs, of which my colleague Balázs Varga will have a talk tomorrow, and he will talk about his work in this area. And of course we have this little rarely used feature in Excel that you can password protect sheet modifications, and Excel has a lot more parts of the sheet that you can password protect. And XLSX is again in somewhat of a bad shape. We have a little missing feature in hyperlinks, which is a fundamental difference in philosophy of Excel and Calc, which means in Excel the hyperlink is a cell level feature, and in Calc it's a text level feature, and we should really develop this in the long term. And conditional formatting is again festering since a long time. I won't go into details, but you can conditionally format your Excel files in a lot more ways than in Calc. More bad ones for XLSX. There was new comment threads support, and there is a page layout view in Excel which we don't have, and the most interesting part is perhaps this document protection issue, where you can set Excel to allow only users edit some range of cells, and this is also strongly tied to the Active Directory, if I remember correctly. So the user identification is tied there. And we have aggressive competitors there as well, and you can have equations in shapes, but that's for PPT. That's mentioned in PPTX, and of course the striped formatting of cell ranges, which is format as table in Excel. We completely missed that feature. Form control is again another underloved area. I mentioned who else uses VML these days. Form controls in Excel, they used VML for describing the graphical appearance of their form controls somehow. A little bit of overview. What I would like to highlight is that we have reports that we can save XLSX files that Excel cannot open, and that's kind of unacceptable for most normal people, which is another word for end user. And PPTX does not seem to have such issues. And one more. I'm just stepping over these. Yeah, 3D model is terrible looking, and kind of popular in drawing shapes in PowerPoint files. And of course there is a lot of options for setting text level effects, which is most popular in PPTX format, but it is also available for XLSX or docx documents as well. And of course another elephant in the room is equation issues. Like lots of people like to put mathematical equations on their slides. For example, in schools, teachers like to do that, and those are just disappearing in PowerPoint, in Impress. Last chart. Again, shapes are looking out as the top issue, and time's up. Questions is outside. Thank you for your attention.
Whichever you prefer. HDMI or VGA. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know, we can, there's a discussion side too. Do we have a microphone, or I just repeat questions? Yeah, but if we don't have a second microphone for that, so we will... Or I can just repeat what people say. You can also repeat, yeah. Hello, 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 hello. Can you hear me? Ha. Good stuff. I prefer to wander around, if that's right, out of frame mostly. That's that's better for the audience online. Good. Well, thank you for coming. And yeah, hopefully we've got some interesting things to say. So really my talk has two parts. There's a sort of a history, I think, of where we got today, and some thoughts from me on it. And then hopefully we can talk about options and discuss things. Yeah, fair enough. Fit everything on. Oh, well fun. It's probably on my slide, actually. You know, I probably just pasted it in the middle. No, okay, fine. Let's try and play with the settings. Why not? It's always fun. It's not. It's okay. Fair enough. Yeah, we probably missed the full stop on the end, but it's probably okay. Esky. Perfect. Anyway, you can be assured that the left-hand side of the logo looked a lot better when we could see all of it. So there we are. Perfect. So this is some sort of history of online and how we got here. But see, there's quite a bit of prehistory, sort of before history began. So a long time ago, I went to see these people in Hamburg that had a thing called Star Division, and I can't remember quite when, but Quaylorn probably knows all of the answers here, and so I'm relying on him to tell me. Anyway, they'd created this beautiful ActiveX control that ran in the browser and talked to your Sun workstation, and they called it Star Portal. And it seems to have died as if it never was on the internet. You can't find pictures of it, at least I can't. But I remember seeing it. Did you see it, Quaylorn? Yep. It did exist, and yeah. Yep, Quaylorn was showing it when he was being interviewed, so it must have existed. And it talked to a Sun server, which was great, because you could sell lots of Sun servers, and ultimately Sun was a server company, so that was kind of useful. And there was lots of Uno-ness to go, so they used Uno as the remote protocol for that, and they did a whole lot of async stuff to make one-way methods work and try and make that perform without too many round trips. And they brought it up, and it worked. You could edit in your browser. You did need an ActiveX control running under Windows, which is a slight downer. But anyway, the technology as it was quite impressive. And some of the underlying things there actually were then subsequently contributed to LibreOffice, as I understand it. So this Vigra and supporting libraries and this base BMP thing sort of all landed in LibreOffice some years later. And our very own Torsten Behrens was working on it, I guess, back in the day. And it lasted quite a long time. So base BMP allowed you to do your rendering and do your VCL rendering at the bottom of LibreOffice in a way that looked the same as X or anything else, but without needing a graphic display server, so you could run it on the server side better. And yeah, I mean, like, I guess Quaylorn and I started, made a mess of it, and then Quaylorn finished it beautifully. But the GTK3 port ultimately brought Cairo, and in the end we could get rid of base BMP, which was just a massive celebration. Very, very helpful. And and sort of and some of this Vigra and some of this other stuff that was supposedly so efficient, but with templates, but turned out not to be. And but it's still there in Apache OpenOffice. If you want to see relics of software engineering, and how it used to be, you can see it there now. So, and then there was an SVP plugin, which I guess sat on top of that. So this was the headless plugin that used this infrastructure, graphics infrastructure underneath. And Quaylorn sort of did this quite small commit, frankly, to the headless headless module, going, oh, I'm going to do all this stuff. And in response, I guess Sun open sourced their VCL plugin at the back end, the SVP code that today is the basis of the GTK3 and 4 and the headless work that we use. And so they open sourced that and contributed a huge amount of code to doing that. So thank you, Sun. Absolutely excellent. So then, of course, well, a little bit later on, we announced the idea of the Document Foundation. And you may or may not recall these times, but one of the things that was happening at the time is that Oracle was trying to make an online collaborative Office suite. And so that's pretty sticky. It was proprietary. It wasn't open source, but it was CSS and JavaScript and so on. And so it was really important that we at LibreOffice had a good story. If not a product, we at least, there was a vision, there was a direction. And, we live in a tech industry where direction is very important. Being perceived to have a plan and a future is arguably more important than having it. So, for the Paris conference, there was quite a large amount of hackery from me at the time at SUSE to get a first GTK3 port working. So all sorts of Cairo rendering, damage tracking, clipping, handling, the mess there. And yes, GTK, extensive exorcisms. I cut and paste encoding is terrible, but we had to take something, and we did that. But this is my commit. You can go and see it at the bottom of the stack. And one of the things there was to have something to demo to a potential government investor in Paris who could have helped fund, all sorts of online stuff and LibreOffice and so on and so on. Unfortunately, like so many customer pitches, it never happened, but at least there it was. And SUSE helped support me doing that, which is good. And so here are actually my slides from the first LibreOffice conference, and you'll discover there's actually still a bug here. This is quite annoying, where, I don't know, and I've tried to find this bug many times. It won't come back if I don't do it without projecting. Anyway, we used GTK3 and Broadway, which is built in, and it was amazing. You could run LibreOffice in the browser, and for the first time ever, and that code is still there. You can still run, I expect you can still run LibreOffice in the browser using GTK Broadway. And we got screenshots like this, which may look familiar for anyone who's played with WebAssembly. There may be a feeling of deja vu, but rest assured that this was only 10 years ago, and we've got something really product ready now. So anyway, but so that was quite fun. And here are the conclusions. It's a prototype, blah, blah, blah. It's all in public Git. You just do this, and obviously Alex Larson at Red Hat did the GTK Broadway piece that made that actually possible. So that's all good. So but the problem is also at the time there was a company called, I think, Android. I don't know. They made an Android Apache OpenOffice thing. I can't recall what it's called. Andro OpenOffice, says Candy. Yeah. And so again, perception is really important, that we are the ones with the cool we are the cool kids that have the cutting edge stuff in this case. So we spent a lot of very heavy lifting work. I mean, Tor did a lot of work here underneath. I was there very, very late with Candy, I think at a FOSDEM, hacking on this the night before, trying to get something that was actually demoable and worked in the Android viewer that we could show to the assembled masses of hackers at FOSDEM. And so, so we managed to get not only LibreOffice in a browser, but something on Android that predates TDF. And we showed it to people. I think I have a picture of it somewhere. Okay, in a minute or two. And I'll get to that. Subsequently, February, late after FOSDEM, TDF was founded, I guess. But interestingly, before even TDF existed, we have had an online version. And an Android thing. And we'll look at that in a second. So at the same time, we had a great programming story about reusing the code and how easy it was to use Uno, and Uno was great, and you could remote control LibreOffice and so on. But I was pretty convinced that this was really not easy to do, and you had to have lots of libraries and things and link stuff that wasn't really installed in the system, and it was a nightmare. So the theory was great. Shoot, yeah. Are you heckling? A notification from whom? That's the thing. What did it say? Gokai, oh right, is he telling me all sorts of interesting things that I shouldn't know? Yeah. 1 second. I might need to just disconnect and turn off my notifications. Was it some deeply personal something or other, or is there, I don't know. You didn't see it. Well, there you go. You're right. But thank you, Guillaume. That's very, very good of you. I'm sure there's all sorts of interesting things I should keep up with while I'm presenting. Okay. I'll screw up the... Aha, perfect. Anyway, LibreOffice Kit. We'll get there in the end. It'll probably take a second to resynchronize. So the thought was then that we should make it much, much easier to reuse LibreOffice. And so I created a thing called LibreOffice. Well, at the time it was called LibreOffice. You can see my marketing skills were, absolute innovation there in marketing. Luckily, in the end, there were so many kits. There was package kit and system kit and foo kit, whatever, that even I decided that a better name would be LibreOffice Kit. So we renamed it eventually. But the idea here was that you have a header-only C library. So you didn't need to include anything. It was all in the box. And you would link this thing, and then you could suck goodness out of LibreOffice. And initially we used this for LOConf. So the first customer wanted to convert files, and they didn't want to know anything about LibreOffice. They just wanted a small binary that could convert files. And do that in process and manage it rather than managing an S-Office shell script that ran an S-Office binary and something and something. And so, and they got some really good speed wins from that, which is cool. And we have this hook, LibreOffice Kit hook, and we DL-sim and load it, and all was good. So, here we go. Aha! So another blue slide. This bug really irritates me. Anyway, one day I'll get it fixed. Yes, so this is a FOSDEM. I was talking about the future and, all of this, the future is, you've got to worry about the future a lot. So this is 2012. This is a quote, directly from, in the future, cloud computing will be the only choice, So there you know. Successful businesses may soon have no chief executive, no headquarters, and no IT infrastructure. It's amazing, isn't it? I don't know what they're going to do. But anyway, this kind of thing was, cloud hype. Before that, grid computing, etc. I'm just wondering if anyone here today has presented using an online office suite from their laptop. No? Life, you're, brilliant. But at least I think, that 1 out of 30. My expectation is that we have plenty of time left before this vision occurs, and maybe it's never. So yeah, and this is a quote really that's probably quite useful to bear in mind. But if you look at how Microsoft built their product strategy around online Office, they essentially duplicated. Well, they rewrote the whole product, created something totally different that runs in the browser, and started rewriting stuff left and right. And this is just a recipe for institutional failure, actually. Anyway, and you can see many examples of companies that have failed. But anyway, I talked about how we're reusing code and the web UI and the traditional UI and the Android UI. And anyway, 95% of code shared. Numbers still pretty much the same today. Shipping out of the box in LibreOffice 3.5. You see, that was the Broadway stuff. So, and this was our prototype. We were up there late, working on late at night, swapping buffers and GL stuff, and this is as good as it gets on Android. These were great times. Anyhow, eventually, other people inside SUSE got wind of the fact that there was one department in SUSE that was having all the fun, and writing Android apps and doing stuff in the browser that was nothing to do with kernels and operating systems and so on and so on. And when the inevitable Novell went through a lot of rounds of layoffs. We would regularly fire, 5% of the company every year, and the real trick was to not be in the 5%. And of course, so the criteria there, I think, well, and they got different management that were more competent, arguably, and realized that we weren't making enough money, and so they spun us out, which was great. So, yeah. So finally free, woohoo, to do exactly what our customers want, So there you go. That's the life of being free. But the good news was that Cloudon signed up. So Cloudon had a real problem that they had brought Microsoft Office to the iPad, and this was awesome. But they did it by running Microsoft Office in virtual machines on Windows servers in the cloud, and then streaming it as an H.26175 video or whatever to the iPad. which actually worked, and it did it really quite well. And then they did a bit of stuff on the top, but the problem was this relied on an interpretation of Microsoft's Office licensing that was susceptible to question, and also pricing, and anyway, they were a massive Amazon user, resource user. So that went south pretty aggressively for them. And when that happened, they needed a product, and they were a startup with money. And so anyway, the good news was they picked on LibreOffice to build their iPad thing. So I guess this is probably another rather prominent LibreOffice technology user. And they engaged Collabora, the new company, and Miklos did amazing interop work for them. We're still enjoying. And Tor and Andre Hunt and various other people did work with me to get tiles rendering, and they built a very nice tile rendering app on iPad, proprietary. But there it was. And it was a good time back in 2014. Similar time, Smoose was like, yeah, but what about Android? We can do something good on Android. And so this Smoose is probably, I think, was run by a sugar daddy with large amounts of money. It's like one of those, we should do something good. And so he did do something good. And they funded essentially the LibreOffice Viewer application for Android. So again, they came to Collabora, and we basically took the iPad work we'd done for CloudOn, and we reapplied that, a LibreOffice kit work, on top of Mozilla's Fennec library, which was a tiled renderer for the web browser, to make the first LibreOffice Viewer application for Android. And that's the foundation of the code you still see in the Android directory there. And of course, we credited lots of people. Like SUSE had done a whole load of things in cross-platform support. Google Summer of Code people have done things, blah, 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 blah. Igalia did some stuff, I think, with TDF ultimately. And of course, Mozilla provided Fennec. So, and there you can see, it looks better than the previous demo. I think we can agree. And ultimately, TDF then funded the Android editing work. So this was to take the Smooth SUSE whatever thing and add to the LibreOffice Kit API the ability to edit, which involves adding a whole load of events and driving the core like that. And this was a good time. We were on a roll. Slight downer is that CloudOn were acquired by Dropbox and exited LibreOffice hard, really hard. And one could, if one was a paranoid speculator, note that they also had a large agreement with Microsoft to bundle Dropbox into Windows and so on. But there you are. So one of the things that we also, and this is, I guess, another reuse of it at the time, was to try and get LibreOffice used in GNOME more. We like to encourage people to use our technology everywhere. So for viewing arbitrary documents, we started to add these viewer widgets so that you could then embed LibreOffice inside a much simpler UI, just for viewing a document, like a PDF viewer, but one that actually renders and loads the document. So again, I think Collabora did that, I think, out of the goodness of our hearts, and because we thought it was good to help entrench the technology, let's say, in the mindset of GNOME people who I mean, everyone thinks it's easy to write an Office suite, but until they actually get going, and they see what Microsoft did, and they have to interoperate with. So anyway, we pushed that underneath parts of GNOME, and I don't know if it's still there. Is it still there, Quaylon, GNOME documents? The capacity is still there, yes. If you install the package from the deep dark behind the tiger, whatever. Anyway, good, fair enough. So at this time, we'd managed with our little demos and our totally broken stuff to find another investor, which is even more exciting, in the Czech Republic. And they had real problems trying to get Microsoft answering their emails and being interesting at all in helping them. And so they couldn't integrate with Office 365 or Office Online, and they made a mail client. That was primarily their thing. And yeah, anyway, so we worked together to do some great work there and bring LibreOffice Online into the browser, and that work really was, initially funded by them, although they left, I guess, in 2017, and then Collabora took that and really, carried it on hugely. And then what happened? I mean, these are just some dates. OwnCloud got involved, so we signed a partnership to embed in OwnCloud and have them promote Collabora Online. As soon as NextCloud was founded and split out in 2016, we had a partnership there. And then lots of versions, new features, collaborative editing. I mean, it took quite a long time to get collaborative editing working. Well, it does work. Very nicely, in fact. 2017 code, pixel-based dialogues. So one of the problems was that it really was just a very simple text editor. You could bold things and italic things. So there was a toolbar of options. But getting the rich functionality out of the client and into the browser was tricky. And our first cut there was to bring all the dialogues as pixels, like teleported dialogues into the client. And that was quick and easy, but brought problems. Of course, all the dialogues need to become asynchronous. Otherwise, when you launch one dialogue and then you have another dialogue, if you exit this one, you can't actually exit it until the stack unwinds back again, which is a bit of a nightmare. So you couldn't really bring all dialogues, but you could bring those that you had tweaked at some length. So we're still on a mission to make more things asynchronous, and we're thrilled to have Allotropia helping us with our mission, because in the world of WebAssembly, if you block the main loop, you die. And you have only one thread, which is sexy. But it does mean that everything has to be asynchronous. There can be no state, there can be no functions calling others that last a long time. So there's a nice sort of overlap there in that. And the code has been slowly, moving in this way, I suppose. And perhaps C++ closures getting standardized at a sensible time helpful as well. So then, trying to make the rendering prettier, adapting to high DPI, there's just an unbelievable amount of engineering effort required here. I think Kendi doing, trying to get high DPI rendering and tiles to join and not having pixels that are offset and misaligned, and just the designer, it's really something of an absolute nightmare. And getting basic mobile support. So at some stage, I don't think I mentioned our rather large customer that helped bankroll, or not bankroll, demand, let's say, the mobile version. But at some point, we got a customer on iOS, and so this was done with Adfinis. So Adfinis did a great job of selling Collabora Online, and they sold to a company, as I may have said before, that wanted an online office suite, and that's what was in the spec. Like when you're online, you have the office suite. Immediately after delivering it, they said, but we wanted to work offline as well. Nice. And of course there wasn't anything in that box. There was a sort of, by this time, dead proprietary Cloud-On thing, but nothing. And there was the TDF Android Fennec Mozilla thing, but nothing, which is written in Java. Nothing for iOS. So anyway, we crunched to try and get a first version of that. We already had a slightly responsive UI that would respond to different sized screens. So we spent time making that work nicely on iOS, and we had a first version of it. But this was really built completely from scratch with online. And the idea essentially was to use a web window, like all browsers, all phones now have browsers, which are used for all sorts of things. It's quite a popular API, I guess. And so we would just embed Collabora Online into a browser on the device. And that worked well enough, although there are all sorts of interesting corner cases around keyboards and how you pop them up and how windows resize and copy and paste, and lots of things at the edge of that are really tricky to get right. But anyway, we did some work. So all was well. We had an Android, we had an Android version from TDF's repository that was made by Smooth SUSE, TDF, and various other people, Collabora, obviously. And we had an iOS version, which is great. Somewhere around then, it became clear that the thread-heavy model we had, so initially we started out with synchronous I/O inside Collabora Online, which means essentially you do a write, and if you can't write because the socket is blocked or it's there's some flow control problem on your internet, it just sits there and it hangs. And that's an easy way to write socket code. Most people do that start with, but the problem is that if you want to do writes and reads at the same time, and adapt to different bandwidth situations, you have to have multiple threads. So one thread writing, one thread reading, another thread managing what's going on, and and that's per user that's connected to the document. And any computer science expert will tell you that threading is hard with a capital H, and even good computer scientists screw it up royally. That's probably why. They should be software engineers. That's probably why. But anyway, it became clear as we started to see some of the bugs caused by race conditions between different users and things, that this was just totally unsustainable. And this was on the eve of releasing our product as well. So there was this crisis of, should we meet the roadmap or should we rewrite the whole way we do threading and I/O? And yeah, so one of the exciting decisions I made was that I have to go away and rewrite all of the threading and I/O, and yeah, and so we basically rewrote this all. So there's one thread per document. We had this astonishing realization, which maybe you ought to realize too, that at the end of the day, there is only one network cable coming out of most servers, right? And it doesn't matter how many threads you have writing to sockets at once, there's only one packet going to come out on the network at once. And actually sending a packet is mostly someone else's problem. You know, you hand it to the kernel and it can go and do something efficient. And so wouldn't it be nice if we had a lot less complexity and, you know, and we could actually reason about what was going on in the code. So anyway, so I spent ages and lots of overnight nightmares. And now we have something that's actually much easier to program on. So users can get in and, yeah, I mean, like it's pretty simple. One thread per document. I argue it's simple. It's simpler, a lot simpler, you know. So that was fun. What else? Android. What does that say, Android at the top? Aha. Okay. So we also did code 4.2 at this point. So we tried to do a 6-monthly release cadence of some kind. And this added a whole load of sidebar things. We were getting there. And because we could use the sidebar in various ways on the client that we couldn't do dialogues with, and because we could use it on mobile by wrapping it into a new UI, we added a whole load of functionality to the sidebar. So one of the great drivers for improving the sidebar, with like chart wizards and formula wizards and soon to be math formulae, you can go and see Mike's talk on that. Improvements in table editing and so on is driven by the mobile phone, that we want a one-hand UI so that you can wrap these things into the phone and then just use the functionality easily. So lots of new features then in 4.2, both for mobile, on iOS and also on desktop. And then we released our LibreOffice for Android. So this is essentially taking that iOS code and the LibreOffice, Collabora Online core, and then just putting it inside a GTK, what's it called, a web view, I don't know. There's some horrible Java class. Kenny probably knows the name. Yeah, and so that was essentially based on a completely refreshed approach. There's no Fennec, there's much less Java. It's really a web view to a local cool WSD, wrapping that up, just like iOS. So an entirely new chunk of code there. Now it lives in online/Android. So after a while, and actually there was quite a big debate at this point. So my developers, who shall remain nameless, were very much of the view that the TDF Fennec thing was the future. And the hard control of tiles and management of memory, and this was going to give you a better result, and it would perform better, and it would look better, and it should be better. And it's a idiot's game to try and run a web browser on a mobile phone and debug it, and you know, well, yeah, it's relatively tricky, but you can actually connect the Chrome debugger into the mobile phone and debug that thing there, and it works actually quite well, surprisingly well. If you're used to GDB, it's really surprisingly well. So yeah, but anyway, I said, look, sharing code makes more sense than some small performance improvement. So we did that. And ultimately, I think I was vindicated. You know, in the end, the TDF Android app was dropped from Google Play by TDF, nothing to do with me. And yeah, it was done quietly, which created some aggro, I think, in the community. And its reviews were really bad, and no one was doing anything. Of course, since then, Michael Weghorn has done actually a fair bit of work on it and quite some maintenance. So something like, I don't know, a magic 128 commits have been done since December 2020, and most of those by Michael, I think, for Munich, who had some strategic interest in that. So I think it's in a lot better state now than it was then. But at the end of the day, it's not sharing development effort with lots of those other users. So then we come to the contentious political goodness here. So one of the things that was happening in parallel here was that there was an increasing openness in the board, like this increasing transparency, which, as said earlier, is probably a good thing. And then there was a vote that was proposed to essentially, for TDF to ship online by Paolo here. And I'll get to the text of that in a second. No doubt we can talk about it later. The problem with that, if there is a problem with that, is that lots of people in the community weren't aware of many things the board was aware of. So in terms of the number of developers we had, how sustainable the project was, where we were going, and this sort of thing, and the problems of trying to attract developers and make the ecosystem work. So, at the same meeting, Torsten and I, and you can go and read the minutes of that, tried to present a whole load of things, starting with this. The board, this is a literal quote from what we said and the minutes, wants to be more transparent decisions. That's good. We need to publish the data because it's no good making a decision in the wide community if the wide community doesn't really have a deep understanding of the background. I think that's intrinsic to doing things more openly. It just makes marketing hard. And of course, it was subsequently picked up by the Register in a quite an unfortunate way. And but I would argue that is an inevitable consequence of sharing the facts with people, or perhaps having an overly positive marketing. I don't know who to blame, but you can blame me. I'm good at being blamed. And then there was this vote on the proposal of Paolo, 15-minute discussion. So we'll look at that in a minute, but first I want to just look at why you might want to have bought Collabora Online in 2020-05. So these are basically the reasons why you might want to buy. Let me go around this way. And the reasons were simple. So obviously you got support and SLA and product management. There's a lot of value in these. I don't want to diminish them in any way, but it's harder to explain the value to people versus a free alternative. Like, these are good, but the cash is king, right? So we had various other things to apply moral suasion. So LibreOffice Online and Code would remind users, this is unsupported. You need support, right? Like, you should care about this piece. This is actually important. And so to avoid the impression it's suitable deployments enterprises, when you had something that looked like a big server, this popped up. It didn't stop you using the document. It didn't stop you editing it. But it told you politely that you might want to consider, you might want to consider doing something else. And also, so you could get rid of that by buying Collabora Online. And you also had access to stable binaries. So one of the key features, for example, of Red Hat, is that rel, is scarce. You can't get rel binaries unless you pay, right? I mean, you get the source code. Of course you get the source code. It's open source. And you can get Fedora. That's absolutely fine. That's out there and people use it. But in terms of getting the binaries of rel, you don't get them, signed, whatever binaries, unless you pay. I think that's a very traditional and typical thing for distros. SUSE does exactly the same, you'll be pleased to know. So, yeah. So there were LibreOffice Online development snapshot images, but they weren't stable. They were there, you could get them, but they're not the bee's knees. And so you'd also get Docker images, and you get build instructions and things to help you build your own Docker images. And you'd also get our documentation on installation setup and scaling, which was we published parts of, but was substantially closed at that time. Okay? So then we look at the vote as proposed, and this is just a copy and paste of the what was proposed. So this was the vote, 72 hours notice plus, I'm sure. Enable the infrastructure team to deliver the following packages with TDF and LibreOffice branding. Docker images, own cloud connector, so a branded version of that. Of course, this was written by Collabora and OwnCloud, but rebranding that and providing that with the LibreOffice brand. Asking Nextcloud the opportunity to do the same, putting it in the Univention marketplace, maintaining and updated these on a monthly basis, the latest stable version there for free. And yeah, I think there was another page there. 1 second, I probably mashed the, okay, yeah, I've mashed the ordering. Okay, so LibreOffice branded documentation and help files, so to make it really easy to install, and it'll be free and supported only by the community. And so perhaps you can see the impact of the top pieces. There were some positive pieces as well, like, let me be balanced, right? So there was some attempts then to solve some of the obvious problems here. So supported only by the community, no paid support options from TDF. Okay, so. And the download page made clear if LUL is used in enterprise environment, support options available through the ecosystem, so multiple people might be able to provide things. And at a later stage, limitations, actually there weren't any limitations at this stage, but the pop-up, I assume, is what's meant. Concurrent users and documents will be discussed. And the vote was pulled at the last minute, okay? And I think Paolo will tell you that you only did it for promoting discussion and something like that. Yeah. But from my perspective, it looked like you didn't have the votes to carry it that week, and it's hard to, no, you didn't care. So that's fine. But at least as a business owner, when this level of change, let's call it, is proposed, then it's difficult to know where you go. And so let's just go back a bit to some of the advice from the people that have done this and succeeded. So here's Bob Young. He's a great guy, I think. I don't think any longer with Red Hat in the thing, but here's what he said in his book Open Sources. And I hate to read slides, but I'm actually going to read this to you. How do you make money in free software? And I think this is a question that almost everybody asks me. I say, we write software and we give it away. No, well, okay. And they say, how do you make money doing that? And I'm like, that is a really good question. Honestly, that's the problem, right? No one expects it to be easy to make money in free software. And if I was in church, I would say, amen to that, brother. And then you'd all go, yeah, but anyway. While making money with free software is a challenge is not necessarily greater than proprietary software. In fact, you make money in free software exactly the same way as in proprietary software. You build a great product, you market it with skill and imagination, you build a brand that stands for quality and customer service, right? And I'm broadly with him. Problem is that we've already built a great brand, it's LibreOffice, and if the product, you are doing all the work to make the product, and someone else is marketing it at zero price with the skill and imagination and talent that TDF's marketing brings to it, your brand is not, you're not going to build any kind of brand that gets around that. And that's pretty serious in terms of the ability to fund the thing. And ultimately, marketing is a science that is quite useful. It generates leads. If you don't have leads, your salespeople can't sell to anyone, And when you sell things, you get money, and with that money, if you're Collabora, you make free and open source software. So the lead flow is ultimately fundamental to our business. Now, there are other ways to generate leads than with branding the software and downloading it and offering free downloads and so on. But they're very expensive, and they don't necessarily work well. And you can read, I wrote, for many years, I've written long screeds that no one reads, with pictures on why this is tough. But conferences, direct mail, there are many ways. Like spamming people can kind of work. Hunting, targeting people. But it's extremely expensive. And it's very easy when your software is as cheap as our software is for the cost of sales and marketing to overwhelm anything that you can get back. And I think this is quite a fundamental problem in much of the software, free software that we have, is that we can't afford to market it. And you see this with Oracle DBAs. You talk to an Oracle DBA and you say, why don't you just use MySQL or Postgres? It's awesome. And they're like, but it's really cheap, right? So that will, diminish the whole value of everything that we do. Really, I can't be, if I'm a professional Postgres DBA, the whole value of the licensing and the server stuff is so low that my large salary and position as a DBA is sufficiently, is diminished. And so they choose to use Oracle, which is incredibly expensive, you can't believe. And this happens again and again. So ecosystems are interesting, and anyway. So, marketing against our code that we wrote. Our is kind of odd, but if we wrote it, we can claim perhaps it's ours. As free as in beer is incredibly hard. And particularly against a LibreOffice community brand that's very known and loved by all of us. So the vote didn't go through for one reason or another. We decided instead to come up with a marketing plan, right? So that's a reasonable idea. If TDF is going to crush the lead flow that generates the software, then perhaps we should do something else to replace that. And that's not, it's not a foolish idea, right? And so, as I understand it, one of the ideas was, we take the leads from here that currently go to Collabora, and instead we replace all those leads going to TDF. And then what? That's the question. So there are a lot of people who think that all of TDF's problems would be solved if only it was more diverse. If only we had more companies, then life would be great. And there are a number of ways that shows, and I'll show you one in a minute. But then, assuming this is even legally possible, which was interesting in many ways, and we'll look at. Where do you send the leads, right? So this is one of the questions. If leads are ultimately money, what do you do? So when we were last in Italy, perhaps in Rome, October 2017, here's what was Capano's flyer said. What will Capano contribute to LibreOffice Online? And the punchline are improved user interaction, package access, and sharing experience. So we'll tell you how you can design your UI, and we'll package it available for free, and we'll share our experience. And Collabora had spent quite a lot of time recruiting Capano and visiting them and improving things for them and doing lots of work for them. And ultimately, they built these packages, and for a time, they were listed ahead of Collabora in the download page, in the LibreOffice Online page. So if you went there, you might, as a casual user, you might think that Capano had contributed, something, or that they were important. There's a listing, an ordering there. And to me, that's pretty staggering and astounding, because when you look at it, actually there was very little code, let's say, that went into online from Capano, which is odd. So one of the parts of the marketing plan is, where do the leads go? Like, how do you make that fair? So do you give them to Capano or not? Or is there some threshold? Or do you give people a chance when they start? As you steer business left and right, how do you do it, and on what basis and for what goals? How do you make that stick? And in terms of legal risks, I'm not going to talk about legal risks in detail for TDF, but having a non-profit steering substantial business to one company or another company or anything it's really not easy, right? So, but these are sticking points that maybe could have been solved. I go into these things with an open mind, But then the question is when to start doing this. Should we immediately ship free binaries at TDF, or very rapidly ship them, and then just busk the marketing plan and hope it works when you can see the negative impact is kind of obvious? Or should we try it first for LibreOffice and see if we can make the moral suasion work? That was very uncertain. Destroying business confidence is really easy, and creating it is really hard. And perhaps if you feel attached to your pension or something like that, you can understand why. That might be sorry, I'm making a mess of it. Anyway, so ultimately, we lost confidence completely in the being a sensible outcome here, and we moved. So you can argue why, but my claim is this: it's really an opportunity to unpick lots of badness. And so it also allowed us to solve a number of the problems that people had complained about. So, support SLA product management, fine, that's what we should have. We made our binaries, unlimited binaries, publicly available in a Fedora model. So, you could get the development edition, and that development edition would have no limits. It would not pop up anything. It would not tell you should get support at scale. And we made all of our documentation public and how we can do our Docker images. So we chose to use brand awareness then to do that lead generation and build a brand. So you can argue about forks, but essentially everybody came with us. So, generally in a fork, you go along and then it splits into two prongs, right? I mean, my forks do, or maybe more, 4 sometimes. If it only has one, I'm arguing it's a move, but I won't hassle you about that. Ultimately, there were no commits between the move being announced for 2 months. There was a split vote as to whether to freeze it. The chairman's vote was a casting vote. And subsequently, we had this atticization process approved for putting things in the attic. And the fact that it could be moved back out again was an integral part of that, with rules for that. The ESC ultimately voted in June. They were given a week's notice, a heads up for this. There will be a formal vote next week, and links to the proposals and so on. It was then discussed. There was a vote, which is very rare. The ESC almost never votes, maybe 5 times in its existence. All of the Collabora and Allotropia people abstained from that, and it was passed effectively unanimously. Then there was a board decision, which was much less unanimous, and it resolved to postpone formally atticizing online until, soon, I guess. And that's the result of the vote. But that at least gives a process for bringing it back. And some things sprung up at that point, I guess. So Andreas Manka was stimulated, I'd say, by the ESC decision to work on an updated LibreOffice Online. So you can see that in the FreeOffice Online repository on GitHub. He took the Collabora Online repository from 2022, all of the work we'd done in the last, I don't know how many years, 18 months, 20 months plus there. And his first commit added this file as part of the LibreOffice project to all of the headers. Now, shoot, Paolo.
That's the first thing that you removed.
Yes, so let me reflect on. Sure, so Paolo said that's the first thing we removed when it was no longer part of the LibreOffice project. Absolutely, right. And when you reflect on the trademark nonsense that we've had recently and the problems of claiming that something is LibreOffice when it isn't, I think it's a little bit rich simultaneously to attack people for using the LibreOffice brand and also to encourage other people to call something that isn't LibreOffice, LibreOffice. I find that hard to understand, but yes, fair enough. There was also a renaming of a number of files, changing of some strings, and he continued to take commits from Collabora, tweak them and merge them. Some people talk about stealing code from, I don't know who you're stealing it from, but I think it's interesting to have a balanced view on those things. There was some silliness here where Andreas changed a string in his fork. I mean, this clearly is a fork, although how much work is going on here really is unclear. That broke it, and then there was a big long thread on a board discuss, which you can read, but the punchline is it didn't break anything except Android and iOS releases, of which there were none from that side. So hopefully this has all been resolved in the obvious way, just by having a sensible string. There's only one string that read cool in the LibreOffice core, and it now reads LOK, which stands for LibreOffice Kit. There's another alternative here, which is OXOffice. So OXOffice, OSSII, which is, primarily funded by Taiwanese, well, I understand there's quite a lot of Taiwanese government money there. Have long had their own fork of both LibreOffice and online. And it's great that they're building their own brand around that. I think that's kind of cool. But it's hard to see what they're doing, and the base of the code is rather different. There's a lot of Chinese or traditional Chinese commit messages in there. And there's a lot of this sort of stuff going on. You know, look at this activity, all of this adding caching of tunnel dialogues, which generally is thought to be poor style to take other people's code and put your name on it. So yeah, and I don't see a lot happening there. The base is a very old base, so that really does start from, I think, even before the move, they forked. They also checked the thing out and checked it in. They copied it and created a new Git repository, having changed it and checked it in. So it's very hard to diff one side to the other because you don't know what Git commit was the base, and you don't know what was changed. And that's quite hard to do. I mean, you have to actually try to obscure the origin of it in order to do that, but that's been done both for their LibreOffice fork and also their online fork. And they do contribute some things back. There are a few patches a year that come back. So I think this framing is probably maximally unfair and deeply polarizing. So I'd encourage you not to use that one. I don't think it's reasonable. We've put a fortune into writing Floss, and we contributed, with lots of other people. And when pushed into a corner, in our view, we left. TDF is a community project, and if people show up and do good things, it goes well. So, I think we should, not try to use the community brand to destroy the people doing the work. So here's another thing I hear, that we should have done something useful during COVID. Well, what we did during COVID was the move. So we had unlimited, easy-to-install binary packages, Docker images anyone can use. We had public setup and installation documentation. We removed this warning. And at the same time, we helped many schools and universities and companies to deploy it, and they fund development today. And of course, TDF can still promote what it wishes. And this is our footnote, really. I guess LibreOffice does rock. It is cool. It's an outstanding piece of software, and we love it, and we recommend and commend it to you. Italo came up with, as part of the marketing plan, this very useful LibreOffice technology unifying way of showing this thing. I think it's an excessively helpful way of winning together. And we worked to credit LibreOffice technology and put this in there. It now even shows up, as I said earlier, in thing. And we do community crediting, and we take that quite seriously. So we have good lists of translators and contributors and so on. And we carried on releasing new features and doing good new things. Nextcloud decided, as a vote of confidence, which is brilliant, actually, given the competitive situation in the market, to base on LibreOffice technology by default, which is cool. And so Nextcloud Office are using that, and of course they use their brand, and that's just, great. And shoot, right?
How big are they?
Nextcloud?
Yes.
So how big are they? How big are Nextcloud? So if you look at the Docker image downloads, I think they have 500 million downloads of Nextcloud on the Docker. Oh, that's the Docker number you can see, I think. Now, not all of those have Collabora Online in them, or Nextcloud Office, but it's certainly a great way to get our work out there and get people using the LibreOffice technology, for sure. So the marketing plans, the question is, we did do many changes to improve things to the marketing plan, and maybe they could have worked. I don't know. It's possible. If you should be on TDF Internal, there are many interesting things there. If you remember, do subscribe. But the punchline is that this didn't have any impact at all on our business. So on one stage, that's sad. On another angle, it's good that we didn't do radical changes expecting this to have an effect, when in fact it didn't. So there we go. Where do we go next? So there are many things that we could do, and I'm sure you have more ideas, and do come and talk to me or others afterwards. There is this hungry school kids in Africa need free binaries concern, and that's fair enough. Of course, they can use code. TDF uses code. Or we can provide them with free binaries if that's particularly important to them. Obviously, running Collabora Online needs a Nextcloud, a NoneCloud, a PyDOC file, blah, 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 right? And it needs hardware to run on. And clearly, someone needs to pay for the hardware. I don't think anyone's arguing we should give away hardware. Although maybe we could. Perhaps that's an option. If there are strategic accounts and people feel that they want to install something in their local school and they want that, just talk to me. We can help you. Someone needs to pay something. We try and steer people to do that in many ways in LibreOffice software. My hope is that post-Atticization we can do a better job of promoting LibreOffice technology. We like LibreOffice and we like to promote it. So I think telling people about it more enthusiastically is certainly something we can do. As we use the LibreOffice brand to tell people about LibreOffice, we need clear legal rules. And they have to be credible, trustworthy, and enduring commitments, which unfortunately, in the current world, is very hard for TDF to say and commit anything credibly. I think, yeah. Binding future boards is really hard, and getting boards to agree is hard, but it's possible that we can make some progress here. We try and use a fair use description of our software and fairly credit LibreOffice. And we should work more with the TDF marketing team because they're cool, and we can do case studies, and we're a LibreOffice success story. We need to be telling people like that to try and create more LibreOffice success stories, it seems to me. This is another idea. We could have a new and more effective marketing plan that persuades people that they should pay for LibreOffice and use that to drive LibreOffice development. Maybe. I think there'd be a massive uphill struggle there, and that's not something I advocate. I don't want to go there again. And furthermore, it's not clear to me that TDF is a good foundation to build a business on. I mean, if you look at the branding that CIB have had to change, and the way that they've been treated, it's not clear to me that anything that brings leads and business into TDF and then TDF distributes it is stable or sensible. So another option is, hey, just take the hit. It doesn't matter. It's all nonsense. We should just give it away. Free as in beer is the key, and we should just give it all away now. So there are people that think that. So anyway, thank you for listening. I'm afraid I've consumed much more time than I'd hoped, but we can discuss outside. 5 minutes, okay, so we can have some questions. I hope you can see, well, maybe you can think about this as you sit there. It's unfortunately slightly cut off at the bottom. What do these companies have in common? Sun, Oracle, Smooth, SUSE, Cloud on IceWarp, Capano. Anyway, so thank you for listening. You've been very patient. Thoughts, question. Oh, yeah, you can clap live. Go on, I've got a clack at the back. Well, excellent, thank you. Comments or thoughts? Ryan.
Do starving children in Africa need an online version of Office?
Yeah, so possibly do starving children in Africa need an online version of a productivity suite? So obviously I slightly caricature the perspective, right? So let's say, like there's a lot of quite wealthy people in third world countries and in cities with infrastructure, and maybe we should be compassionate to them and give them software. It's a viewpoint I hear regularly from people, that it is our mission to close the digital divide as TDF, and so we should do that. And that's, I don't want to diminish that argument. And so the question is then, what do we do about that? How do we do that in a way that doesn't destroy, the software itself? I mean, there's no benefit in doing something today that means that we can't do anything tomorrow. Like if we all deploy software that's then not sustained, we have a problem. Does that make sense?
It's something to think about.
It is, and we should definitely think about that later. But I think it's a real concern that some people have. And people have different views of what TDF's mission is. That we have a lot of goals, we have a big manifesto, and people like different parts of it and are attracted to different parts of that. And I think that's reasonable. That's why we have lots of, different strands. The question then is how you reconcile it all and make it work. Paolo, I'm sure you have a question or a comment or am I totally unreasonable? I mean, I know I am, but yeah, okay. yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Sure.
I seen a presentation of the project by Sam, I think, back when we were working together in government in the UK to adopt ODF. It was nice.
So Paolo, like the beginning of the talk, I think is the punchline. the technical details. Yeah.
There's a big chunk missing. No, I don't want to comment much anyway. It's just there's a big chunk.
There's a big chunk missing.
I'll say the first bit is was very very nice. I like actually the story because I used to do a lot of stuff, similar stuff many years ago. So the struggle to create a new technology, just to innovate, and that is just fantastic. So as I said many times, I really appreciate your effort as a developer. You did actually great things. Yeah. So I always said that, and I always said that I appreciate what Collabora is doing. Let's say that the rest of the story probably needs fine-tuning because there is one side, and naturally we can't take hours and hours of conversation and the discussion we had to reach compromises to find good way to actually work on LibreOffice Online together. But that is something that maybe we talk another time.
Yeah. So I have 30 seconds. So let me just say that if you read my slides carefully, the beginning bit shows that investment is what makes code. We had these ideas for a long time, but we had no money to do it, and that actually the economics are what drive it. What's in common between all these companies is that they all once invested in online LibreOffice, like this online document thing, and now none of them do. So the last people left standing are Collabora and, well, our partner network. Luckily, we've tried to build economics that works. Anyway, thanks, Guilhem. That's it. You've been very patient. Grab me outside if you want to carry on. Sorry to go on so long.
なるほど。 さっきの下では大丈夫。Can you change
But now I cannot
resolution?
even, I cannot change the resolution.
Oh.
I don't speak Italian also.
Oh, Italian?
No. But now it does not even react. Yeah, maybe you can give it a try. So it doesn't have the support of that resolution. So I think if you can switch it to 1080p or something, or even 720. But I cannot. It seems that the thing is not responsive anymore. It was some minutes ago, though.
It was working.
Yeah, because I managed to turn that on. But if to put that on the screen. But it doesn't move.
Oh.
It's the thing is stuck.
Turn it off.
I need my glasses.
Off?
Yeah.
No, well,
No, nie dało to.
and keep,
Yeah.
Fresh.
Touching.
just need to restart. I can do maybe the power.
Try it, but still. We had some issues in turning it on, and also it's not so much help for the lamps, to be honest.
I know.
Turn it off. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's stuck now. So I mean,
プロジェクターの方がフリーズしてる感じだ。
maybe that's the video. The power is the thing on the.
Yeah, I know, but if you, this is the video as well.
That's VGA. That's video. That's VGA.
This is all video.
No, you don't know.
Yeah. Try one of the arrows. So we might.
We have the remote control, and this didn't
Yeah,
work.
but this might be an issue
No,
with the
let's
batteries.
turn on.
Really?
Put
In this
the
guy.
plug aside.
Okay, pull the plug.
Yeah, that works. But and usually it cools down.
You know, it's not so healthy for the lamp, but still, try to.
It might survive.
Yeah.
Yes. And we put $10 extra in the box for new lamp earlier.
That's the cheap one.
Just earlier.
It should be. Yeah, it says what there's a nice LED display there that says I'm charging, I'm hotting myself. Yeah. It should be quite hot already. It should be quite hot.
Okay,
already.
now this
No.
you can tell.
No, it's okay. It takes just a little bit more to turn on the lamp, but it should be fine. It should be okay now. You no, no. I'm just failing it. Maybe now. No, well.
The thing is, 20
Maybe 3 p.
Yeah, but it says I'm trying to make the okay. Here we are. It should be going down now.
Oh, okay. It's on. Oh, okay. No, no.
Yeah, still.
There's some countdown. It will explode.
Yeah, let's hope it's not exploding. It's just not exploding. Let's see. Okay. It seems a nice thing there.
And then if you press source, when it's discovering.
No, it's discovered. It should be able to find it now, but you need to probably lessen the resolution.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It was that's what I was trying to do when the interface got stuck and we had to reboot it.
It should be good. It should go down at 720p mostly. That works.
But the projector didn't want to lower the resolution.
I'm not sure if it works with any resolution, so you have at least to make sure that you're passing the resolution there at 720.
Which
720p. Yeah.
720?
Yeah, at least 720p.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Or else I can provide you an adapter.
Adapter?
Yeah, like this one.
Yeah.
That should work because we tried with.
The person behind
No,
you.
it-
Maybe
no.
this- no. What?
Control.
It's all of,
No,
give me
I
your
have it.
message.
Let me just a second.
Oh. Maybe change
Yeah, but he took it.
input, yeah. Okay, it worked. Another.
Yes, this worked. Try with this one. This worked basically just connecting it, so probably. Let's see.
720?
Let's see. If it still works though. Wait a second.
Oops.
It's still searching the signal.
Let's try it. Yeah. It worked yesterday, at least.
No, it does
It
work.
doesn't. You
Yeah.
you don't see the signal. Yeah.
Maybe
Let's
we should
retry.
talk with people that manage the schedule, that we find another spot tomorrow or something for this presentation, because this.
But the projector is not working either, so.
Yeah, whatever. But no. But this. Yeah, this isn't working. But now.
But the projector is not working either.
Yeah.
So there are other talks also in this room.
Yeah.
Today.
Anyway, yeah, problem. Yeah, problem. I didn't bring.
But it should work. Would you like to export your presentation, and I'll try to.
Yeah.
And I'll try to provide a different PC too.
Okay. USB.
Yeah. Would you want a USB? Like.
Yeah.
Try to take this one. It should be USB 3, and I'll provide my PC.
It's looking for signals, it says.
Yeah, that's also understanding. But when I press source to change the source, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Sorry.
Do you use some non-standard fonts there? Let's try.
Emiliano, can you try to
Yep.
to see if this works first? Because sorry, if not, then we have another problem.
Yep, still. But that worked until yesterday.
By the way, if you are trying, when you are trying to control the projector, it is easier to point on the wall.
Okay.
The remote control, like it was taking the signal previously.
Because it bounces there.
Sorry?
It bounces on the wall.
On the wall.
It doesn't seem to work though. Just a second.
Yeah, well, try the on-off button at least.
You have to press it twice.
Yeah, but like you do not have to do stuff now. Like at least, like if it's.
It was also there.
Okay.
I don't think it was a problem of signal.
No.
We already did. We did that.
It could be maybe an issue with the cable or something like that. Still. You shut it down.
Oh, actually, then
Yeah, another thing, maybe if someone could check the HDMI cable there, down in the back of the projector core. Can you help us? Since you are so. Could you try to see if the HDMI cable was much more inside? Yep. Yep.
Now it's back.
Yep. What's going on?
So that might explain why there was some.
Yep. And also, let's try with Koji PC yet again, because that might work.
Sophie? Also, did your help? Maybe. Turn it on now. But you turn it on.
Try turning it on, because I think that the remote works really.
Can you do it when it goes? So we had some problem with the project. Qui aurait dû commencer à parler. Et bah, il a plusieurs solutions. On peut dire que
it should have at least 7020p. That one we know. Well, it used to work at least.
60 hertz. 60 hertz.
Well, probably. Let's see. Because it might even understand the resolution and yeah.
Okay.
Nice. So thank you everyone. Even oh good. Okay.
Wow, big one.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Okay.
Yep, sorry for this.
Is it possible to switch it to 16 to 9?
Can you switch the ratio to...
No.
What? No? Okay.
That my PC, I'm
Oh.
taking it. What
it's
what
this
you
one
need?
that's been used. Yeah, on
On
this
the
thing.
remote control to
Do you want
switch
the
it
laser?
16 to 9.
Where's the remote control?
This remote control, but still. Let's see. Not this one, sorry. Yeah. But I'm not sure it goes.
There is formato. Formato, it is not 4 to 3.
Formato di 4
Yeah.
16 no.
Yeah.
Should be
Let's
16
see.
to 9.
Yep. Still, it should be. But I'm struggling.
No.
I'm not sure. Okay. Good one. Good one.
Don't touch anything.
Okay. That should be a good one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we still have to.
Sorry for that. So you have until 6.
Okay. 6? Yeah.
Okay, sorry for that. Go ahead, Courtney.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh. Okay. Hi, hello. Okay, let's get started. My presentation title is Let's Calculate with Math using Math Type and Mathematica. Who is use some math type and Mathematica? Oh, thank you. A little bit? Oh. Okay, who am I? I'm Koji Nora from Japan. I love a Neo4j graph database and I love LibreOffice. I'm a Japanese LibreOffice team, one of Japanese LibreOffice team. And I love coffee. And today's agenda is this one. What is LibreOffice math and how do I calculate in math? Who is calculate in math? In math? Okay. How? How? Okay. Oh. Oh. Okay. I want to know. I used to LibreOffice 7.4.1 and Math Type for Windows or Mac and Mathematica. Okay. Really, some basic things. Math. My LibreOffice experience, I have been using Calc, Writer, and Impress almost every day, but I'm a newbie to LibreOffice Math. Math is just a formula editor. Math do not calculate at yeah. And save two formats. Okay, one is .odf, other is XML 2.0, like this. This is XML 2.0 documents, a save format. Okay. And my question is how to calculate in or with math, and how do I calculate sigma in math? Or how? I tried to use just OLE. OLE is object linking and embedding objects. You can use a formula in Calc, Impress, or other application. How do I calculate with math? I do not want this solution. Just formulas are image only, and calculates are performed in Calc. This example is formula square root x, almost the same Calc command. sqrtx. Okay. Next is sigma. Same as this one, square root. Just image only. This is a just object, and calculate in Calc. The formula is this one, sum from k equal 1 to 3 to k. The Calc is just the sum. But I don't want this solution. Okay, like this OLE object in Calc, like this. You can call you can input this object, math object, from Calc or other application. Okay, but okay, this I like the human readable format below one. It's easy to understand. Sum from k equal 1 to blah blah blah. So easy to understand. Next, LibreOffice Math 2 math type. Oops. Math type is formula editor like math. Download is just 3 types of download of math. One is Microsoft add-in program, and second is math type for Windows, no Mac, and math type for Google Workspace. 3 types of download. I use math type for Windows. It's like a math. It's easy to create the math format. Okay. Math type save format is here from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from .eps to .gif. LibreOffice Math save only two formats, .odf and MML. So format is different. But math type format imported to LibreOffice writer and calc used by Windows metafile.wmf. Just a picture. Okay, and I try to use Mathematica from math. This is a Mathematica super simple command screen. It's easy. This is pi 60 length of pi is just here. This is a command of a 60 length to pi, and this one is good solution. Out is here. Okay, and sigma likes here sum 2k and k comma 3, just it. And answer is 12. This is a Mathematica command line. So Mathematica and math command, okay, pi 60 is here, 60 length, 3.1 for some blah blah blah, and pi 15 length is the same as LibreOffice Calc answer, just 15 length. This is a command, and LibreOffice Math is %pi. But both commands are so similar. Mathematica is here, sum to k comma 3. LibreOffice Math is here, sum from k equal 1 to 3 to k. So, okay, it's so easy to move other commands. So I'm working on app is convert command between Mathematica and math. And I want to know who knows a good solution, Mathematica and math, or something application and math. Do you know a good solution? Please tell me. Yeah. I'm now working on creating an app by Python. Okay. A little bit short.
That's good.
Good.
We were running. We were in
Okay.
But we do have a couple of minutes for questions. But thanks, Cody, first.
Thank you.
Just a
No.
Yeah, just to say that it's a really interesting attempt to indeed combine the formula editing with calculation somehow to get it started. And you work with Python to start converting, you said. Oh, that's interesting. Well, maybe there are indeed people that can give some hints there. Yeah.
Do you have some kind of prototype already?
Not yet now, but in next month. Okay. I will. How to open or how to download my application? Which site? Do you know?
Where to publish?
Yeah, publish.
Which of the LibreOffice mail extensions? Yes.
The wire doesn't go as far.
Is it your birthday today?
Oh, you know.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rosie. Happy birthday to you.
Tabak. Champagne.
So regarding uploading, maybe the extension side?
Yeah, or my site is oh, or my site. Yeah, yeah, to download. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, thank you for birthday thing song.
I think it was time for short talks. First one was Samuel, but he's not here.
Who?
Samuel?
Oh, he's not. There's a video. Is there a video of Samuel? Torsten would know. Let me ask Torsten.
Well, we can, given that we're a little bit late, the second one was KO now.
I sent a message to. My name is not there. I sent a message to.
Sign up, Torsten.
He should have recorded talk, but I also don't know where it is.
Then,
Oh, he gave the talk downstairs. Oh, but do you know about Samuel's talk?
Yeah. Let me try to understand.
Why don't you discuss his talk, Mike? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
No problem, the talk finished 3 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
is Eyal or KO here?
Eyal was here a minute ago.
I'm a bit confused. Why speakers leave?
There
Oh yeah? Okay. Okay. Changing schedule. Okay. We could have time if, but I mean, technically it would, well, three of them would fit, but if the speakers were told to, yeah, but we could.
It's only 5 minutes. I can do it tomorrow as well.
So what do you get? HDMI. No VGA either. You have USB-C? I have a bunch of adapters someplace. I thought I had HDMI on it. What have I got on it? What's that? What is that? That's VGA in. But you have VGA, sorry. That's HDMI in. That should be fine. I thought I had a better one there. Have you got anything, have we? Is it working? All right, very good then. Yeah, what's my time then? 5 minutes, is it? All right, let's get on with it. There's three brief topics I meant to cover here, the Coverity stuff, and used to do this every couple of years. Used to do this every year just to update the numbers, so I won't bore too much on the long stuff, but on the Coverity stuff, I build it on my side, static code analysis, upload it to the Coverity servers, and they analyze it on their side and give those numbers back. Used to be just C++, now it does C++ and Java. That are this year's numbers. Italo tried to steal my thunder earlier on. It's been about a year and a half since we got the numbers back down again from their height. So we're back down to a zero defect situation as of the 24th of September, after quite a while. This is the historical data of the number of defects that we had. The next one makes it kind of better viewing.
Low is good, 0 is good. We made an attempt to upgrade to the first 2022 version of Coverity at that point. Rolled it back because there was too much noise there again. They deprecated that version, the version of Coverity we were using. So we were forced to go to the second release in 2022, which was an even higher peak of noise. So it's been a difficult process of bringing it back down to 0 again. There was new categories of warnings that Coverity found which are useful to us. It knows about standard move. It knows that after you use standard move on something, what's left behind is effectively uninitialized or zeroed and needs to be checked. So it does that check now. It kind of knows about a standard unique pointer. It's not great about it, but it does find some issues and then often brings in more noise again. And then normally what we do for the rest of the defects is that it helps me if we annotate inline that are false positives, because in Red Hat we run a second Coverity instance that is not at all connected to the public one. So if they're in inline annotations, I don't have to do it again twice. Otherwise, using the web interface to say that it's not a bug or it's a false positive is helpful in that instance, but there's no impact on the other one. But that shouldn't really be a big problem for you. It's just why I do it that way. This is the Coverity warning patterns. We have false positives, intentional, and then there's a new one for don't even record it in the instance at all. That's rarely used in our base. So Coverity numbers, after a long process, they're back down to 0 again, and that's great, and we're using the latest version of Coverity. The OSS fuzz, that's what Google provides. What happens there is that it's built remotely on Google's side. We have a whole bunch of fuzzers where we import in a whole different bunch of file formats, and it finds crashes, records crashes, categorizes them into security relevant crashes and not crashes. We have 48 targets in that directory there, from GIF to doc to ODT. They're built with 4 different types of combination of fuzzers: address sanitizers, undefined behavior sanitizers, memory sanitizers, and then different engines that run that. Configuration doesn't really matter. It's very similar to the iOS case, just for reference. And then this is a chart of the reports we've had for the last couple of years. First couple of years, huge number of reports, small after that, but then we add more fuzzers as time goes by. That finds things. And then, of course, OSS Fuzz itself gets smarter and begins combining things in different ways, or develops new features that it didn't have before. So the number has been growing recently as the number of reports per year, not the amount of backlog of unfixed items. This is just a sample bug. What is difficult with OSS Fuzz is that documents that time out don't get completed in the amount of time available. It'll report one of them for each fuzzer. If you were to fix it, then another one will be found inevitably. So there's always this constant churn of timeouts. It's great when you find something that's an infinite loop because you've got a real bug. It's really painful when you have this constant sequence of slow documents. So you end up cutting out the slow paths in a lot of cases, whereas ideally it would always be fast. And Noel has helped out in improving the common cases that are slow, but edge cases often get just chopped out of memory. Similar problem as well. Have to deal with it in different ways. What's not covered by fuzzing at the moment, which is the real problem, is that we're only fuzzing importing documents. We're not fuzzing exporting documents, and maybe more crucially, we're not exporting that subcase, which is when you're printing to PDF. So you can still crash LibreOffice. There probably is a lot of crashes in LibreOffice that we haven't detected this way, that we could detect this way, which involves just importing random documents and exporting to PDF. That's the second thread of that. The third thread then is the crash testing, which is where we have a load of documents on our own servers again, on one particular machine sponsored by Adfinus, and we export them to a whole bunch of formats, and we import them, and we see what crashes. And we do this pretty regularly, and we try and pick up on most recent crashes that people have introduced by refactoring things or whatnot. We get the documents from Bugzilla, but one tool scrapes them from our Bugzilla and a whole bunch of other people's Bugzillas, and then we have a new tool that scrapes them from various forums, Microsoft forum or open document forums or whatnot. That's from Cisco recently. And then there's some other collections where we have documents come from as well. And I'd like to point out a donation from ForcePoint of a set of documents that crash. That brings us up now to about 250,000 documents that we're processing. That takes about 4 days on this pretty good hardware to import them all and then export them in different formats. And then when they crash, to collect the back traces, etc., etc. The actual build time is, I don't know, minutes on a machine like this. Marcus has helped set up all this infrastructure back in the day. So that's this year's chart of crash testing. At some point here, it's difficult to tell on the chart, Cisco's documents were added, but people smarter than me might be able to find where that exactly happened. So that's the crash testing, and I'd like to say thanks to Finance for the hardware, and thanks to Cisco for adding this extra set of documents to make my life easier over the last couple of months to try and fix. And thanks to all the people who have actually fixed all these people. The companies listed here are the people behind the fixes. Thank you. I don't know if there's any questions. There's no time for questions.
Okay, so please anonymize my document by me. So why do I even want to anonymize documents? Well, think that you're looking at a bug report that some user has made. So you're a developer or a QA person, and you're sitting on the IRC channel, and then you see that somebody submitted this report. So you go to see, you visit the bug page. And they describe the bug. I have this document. I'm doing this thing. I'm doing that thing, and this is what I get. And they're even nice, so they provide some build information, which is really great. But then but even though they see the problem, you might not see it. So you try to follow the instructions. You don't see anything wrong. Even if you're playing with the document a little, putting effort into it, you still don't see it. So then you go back to the bug page and tell the user, please give me a reproducer, a document I could use which exhibits the bug, or link to me, or link to that, or attach it. And then they tell you, I would really love to do that, but I just cannot upload this document to a public venue. And this is the main motivation. And why can't they just upload their document? Maybe it's personal, or it's a draft, and that will make them, and publishing the draft will be a problem. Maybe it's the draft of the great American novel that they're writing, or it's a business contract, or maybe they're under obligation not to disclose. So maybe it's a personal promise, or it was created when they're working for some company. It doesn't have to be big corp, it can be small corp. And actually, these are most of the documents that people are working on, because when do we discover bugs? When we're working on a document that's a draft, and most of the drafts are things that you don't want other people to see. So what are we going to do about that? The poor solution is have the user remove all of the private information themselves, which is what they're supposed to do today. But this is actually difficult because it could make the bug disappear, and if they want to remove things selectively, then that's hard, and it's a lot of work. And if the document is large, then just forget about it. That's not going to happen. So bottom line with that is that the fraction of bugs that have documents attached to them exhibiting the bug is low, at least as far as I can tell. So what's the better solution? Do this automatically. So you want to replace, so I have my personal letter here, and I want some tool to replace this text. By the way, this does supposedly have a bug. Never mind that it's a false bug, but like the lines seem to overlap. So I want to submit a bug, and then instead I get some sort of replacement text instead, and hopefully the replacement text will have this similar features in some senses to the original, like in a number of words on the line or whatever, and then I can upload that instead. And this would be great. And it's actually not that difficult, at least not the basic form of anonymization, because we don't actually need to run LibreOffice in order to do this. You can actually operate on the ODT file or whatever file format we support. We just traverse text nodes in the context, content.xml, and also meta.xml for the metadata. And that means that you could have like a web form where you submit the document and some script run on the server and do that for you. And that means that you can offer this to people when they're reporting bugs on the Bugzilla. Won't you also consider anonymizing your document and then uploading, like attaching it to your bug? And that would be like the real win. And of course, there are lots of and this can be made simpler, but more complex and more featureful. So of course, you want to scrub the metadata. That's not hard. But if you want support for multiple languages, that's another complication. Maybe multiple languages in the same paragraph which get different text. Do you want to replace it with some generated text or gibberish or like fixed text? And then you want to try to maybe maintain as many effects as you can due to the choice of specific characters. And inter-character effects like connections in Arabic where the letters have connecting forms. And of course, another challenge is replacing graphics. So you want to maybe that has private information you don't want to disclose. So it could just be like a rectangle with nothing in it, or maybe like blurring. That could also be considered. And the even more significant challenge is if you want to do something with vector graphics. But let's just start, if somebody is willing to implement this for us meaning QA people, then let's just start with the simplest version that just takes care of the text and the meta fields, like the document description. And then we can worry about these things later. So that would really help us. It will help developers as well, I believe. It should not be that difficult, so please do this for us. So I'm done. Yeah, question?
There is no time for questions.
No time for questions.
There is a problem in your proposal because you're saying that they are not going to upload the document to Bugzilla, but then you are saying that we should have another service, so they are not going to upload it there.
If we can guarantee that the thing is not if it's done client side rather than server side, and they're willing to believe us, that takes care of that. Of course, if somebody's working on the top secret government document, then yes, that would not resolve that problem, and they would need to run the script themselves. But it's not perfect, but it will help a lot in most cases. Yeah.
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be. There are like two other possibilities. So one would be like something built in directly in LibreOffice. So like you would have it, I don't know, somewhere, click something, and it would enable, for example, save as anonymized or something like that.
That's also possible.
That
Sure.
could be one possibility, and the other.
But then you don't get the Bugzilla integration.
Or something that would take the document and filter it.
I think what we save as is that often the damage is done by the time you've
documents by there is a feature which exists, which is
Actually, I didn't know about
which
that.
is probably useless but worth looking at as an idea. How can be done?
I'll look into that.
How can I cancel? Yeah, I don't want that. Thanks. Well, I'd like to just quickly talk about what I call the bookshop project and the web output. The situation is essentially that we have quite a lot of good documents, which is our guides. And our guides I produced as ODT or PDF. And when you want to use the information, you have to go and download the PDF or go to the ODT file and then extract the information. But you cannot, for example, directly use a link. So the idea is to export the chapters and the guides in a form that will allow us to upload into a website and use on a browser to fix to have the display. So what's the challenge? The challenge is that we have a set of contents which is in format of a book or a document with pages, and we need to shuffle all these sections into something that is better displayed in a browser. So for example, the table of contents goes here, the copyright and the contents goes here. We can add a search mechanism to localize or locate strings. We can give some logo, and we have the book table of contents. To change that into that format requires scripts to manage contents here, and then JavaScript to manage the web output. Okay, and we try to use the export for HTML, but when you export HTML, you have this same layout with a very long web page. So there is a lot of work to do, and this is what we were doing for several languages. So we created this small website in which each of these books is static HTML, and we have several languages. And when we click on a book and start to read, we have this layout. The table of contents is on the left. The book table of contents is on the right. And then we have the contents here displayed, and you can scroll. And you can have a search mechanism here to locate in the book a specific content, or you can use the browser search function to locate inside the web page. And then we have also other things, nice things like the logo and a button for support LibreOffice. So what the conclusion of this small talk is that we sometimes think about that we need a web output, which is nothing, it's beyond pure export to HTML or to XHTML. So the question is, can I have a page grid so that I can manage the layout of my page like we do in HTML with the CSS grid?
Okay, so we can have elements of the document to get a new attribute, which is the page grid ID, so that I can position sections, headings, and objects in the grid I want in my web page, and get some other information, such as working on inheritance, working for frames, image, and objects, and evaluate if the grid is in the page style or is in the document, which I have not yet thought about. So basically, that's this small lightning talk. Thank you very much for that. And let's see. Thank you.
Have you heard about DocBook? This is a standard for representing documents which are book-like, in which you do some, basically there's a semantic representation, and there are tools and filters to create different formats like single-page and multi-page HTML, and also LaTeX and other things from the semantic representation as a DocBook. So maybe if we had exporting to DocBook, that would solve or would be an approach to addressing this.
Yeah, we so far didn't look at this specific. What I can tell you is that I was using a extension developed in Java. It is available in the extension website. It's a writer to LaTeX or writer to HTML, and it produces a simpler HTML with some form of some intermediate screens that you can define what you want at your outputs. When you export to XHTML directly from the LibreOffice, you don't have this control. Everything goes directly. So, okay.
And there was Samuel left, but he's still Torsten is not here with the video, so I guess this will be rescheduled. So I think we're off for the day. Thanks.